was good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. And welcome into the KC Sports Authority podcast over here on YouTube, where you can check us out. Give us a follow, subscription, hit that thumbs up button down there below. We'd appreciate that. You could also follow us over on Spotify, where you can listen to the podcast on the go. And tonight, it's MLB post trade deadline. And we've got reactions not only to the MLB, because this was a wild day of trades. Insane day. Obviously, we're going to touch on all the moves the Royals made and kind of where that leaves things moving forward. So again, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure to drop all of your thoughts in the comment section below on today's moves, not just Royals, but baseball in general. Because Chris, if you were a baseball fan, today was the equivalent of NFL draft day, NFL free agency, NBA free agency, because today's trade deadline had everything you could imagine.
Yeah, it was insane. It had the rumors that did come true. It had the rumors that didn't come true when it comes to like Stephen Kwan and the Joe Ryan out in Minnesota. It had everything. And so like you said, if you're a baseball fan, just constantly refreshing your phone. I don't know how much work was getting done from anyone there. I know my last 2 hours of work was about as unproductive as I could be, but it was a hell of a day. And look at the Royals making a few moves, not the too splashy, but savvy moves that shows that like anyone that's still saying JJ is like Dayton just now isn't paying attention, because this man loves making transaction is down to deal anytime.
Yeah, so let's get into it. We know coming into today, there were several things we needed to see from the Royals. Definitely needed to address starting pitching with all the injury concerns. Bubic going to the 6-day IL, finishing his season. Reagan's still out for at least 4 more weeks, if not longer. Michael Lorenzen hopefully is back for this next start. Alec Marsh not ready to come up yet. Kyle Wright not ready to come up yet. You were starting to have some issues in the rotation, needing some spot starts from guys that you really don't want to throw out there more than once or twice a season. So we knew that was going to be a focus today. The fan base, obviously, we wanted another bat, a outfield bat priority that would move the needle and be able to fill that massive hole in left field, which we'll get into how they're addressing that. And then maybe a little bit of just depth for the future. And we saw JJ do a little bit of all of that today. I guess we got to start with Freddie Fermin. I did not see that coming. I don't think you saw that coming. We've talked about it as a good trade candidate. It's not often you see a guy like him move midseason, because you got to start completely over with pitchers and build all that camaraderie and chemistry as quickly as possible. A guy the Royals have had in their system for over 10 years. Not just a fan favorite, but clubhouse favorite. That one was a hard pill to swallow, I think, at first seeing that come through, but you get a pretty good return. So let's start there. Thoughts on the Ferminator going out to San Diego and the 2 right-handed pitchers we got back.
It was weird feeling bummed about the Royals getting rid of someone. Like, that's not like something we felt in a while, or even, felt that it was necessary. Sometimes when they've traded some of your favorite players away in the past, it was like, contract is expiring. Like when they traded Moose, for Brett Phillips and Jorge Lopez, it was like, man, that kind of sucks. But the 2018 team was so bad. Moose was on an expiring contract. Like, good to see him go. You had that feeling. With Freddie, it was like, and not that he was the level of Moose, obviously, but like it was just a little bit of a gut punch. And like, man, I really enjoyed we had the best backup catcher in all of baseball. He's just a clear energy guy. The Venezuelan connection with Salvi was very evident. It was a little bit of just like oh man, I'm sad to see Freddie go. But then you see who they got back, and you're like, it's hard to. I see why JJ said yes.
And I wonder with that, how much of it, I don't know if JJ's talked on it that much yet. I saw some comments on, him saying how much they're going to miss Freddie and how difficult that was to move a guy like him. But I wonder how much of that was the Padres calling versus the Royals were also potentially shopping him around. Because, that return for a 30-year-old backup catcher, essentially, who could be starting in probably half of the league, would be an upgrade over a lot of catchers elsewhere. But 2 under 30, multiple years, controllable pitchers, guys that can start, guys that can go to the bullpen, one that's got high upside, top 10 prospect for the Padres. That's a pretty solid move that's hard to say no to, regardless of situation. So you can't be mad about the trade itself, the return you got. But yeah, it's sucks to see Freddie go because he's a big part to the culture of this team. And nothing against Luke Maile, but I don't know how much Maile is going to fulfill what Freddie Fermin was doing, because in reality, Fermin wasn't just playing backup catcher. He was playing enough to where Salvi could DH or play first. Don't know what that's going to look like with Maile.
Right.
We'll have to see how that goes, but let's get into the return on these two. You get two right-hand pitchers, a 25-year-old, 28-year-old, both multiple years control. Stephen Kolek, who I think made his debut last year, if I'm not mistaken, has had a good chunk of starts under his belt. Pretty decent, interesting pitcher there that fulfills an immediate need right now for the Royals for the rest of this season, but also gives them options for the next couple of years. And then, of course, you get their number 6 prospect, Ryan Bergert, or however you want to say it. I'm not going to question anybody's version of that. I've heard different already, but what do you like about this return?
Yeah, I mean, getting Ryan Bergert alone is crazy value for your backup catcher. Because again, as much as we love Freddie and sad to see him go, we've seen what Freddie, with extended start time looks like, and especially when Vinny went down and he was basically starting every game in some fashion. It was tough. Like he just didn't perform to, the extent that you would expect when he was more of a part-time player. So the fact that that guy who's really truly a backup catcher in my mind, I mean, I hope he proves me wrong in San Diego, gave you a kid who he's basically, as far as age and control, is Noah Cameron, 25-year-old rookie who wasn't on any top 100 prospect lists, but is a guy that you expect can get big leagues outs. He's in the top 10 of the organization, and he's going to be, maybe his ceiling is a number 3 and his, the floor is a swing guy that can be long relief or number 5. Like, that's crazy value alone for a backup catcher, 30-year-old backup catcher. Now you throw in basically the older version of that, Kolek, he's kind of in that same mold, just a few years ahead, to where these guys aren't going to be stars. Now Berger could develop into a little bit more, I think. Kolek is not going to be a star, but they're big league pitchers who can get you outs and provide a lot of depth. And again, that's just insane value that I don't think, JJ said it, like, they've been getting calls from Freddie for a long time, from the trade deadline last year, off season to the start of this year. Like, people are calling about Freddie, and I think the Padres finally got desperate enough to where, like, we cannot have Martin Maldonado and Elias Diaz being our catchers anymore. We need to have someone that can provide a little bit offensively, that they're like, hey, yo, can we have Fermin? We'll give you 2 big league arms. And JJ was like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, and credit to JJ, because the Padres were just throwing prospects around left and right today,
crazy,
entering out half of their top 30 prospects, which, they made all-in moves all across the diamond, and hopefully that works out for them. It hasn't worked out in years past so far, making those moves, but they brought a lot of guys in. They got Ramon Laureano, which is one, I've talked about. I would have loved to see here in KC, along with Ryan O'Hearn. They paired the two of them. They made a lot of moves, but yeah, like the upside here, you get two guys again with a couple years control. With Berger, you have a guy that, with this pitching staff, the way they've been developing arms, you can take a guy like that who's already got a high ceiling, and maybe you can pull his floor up some, but develop maybe a fourth pitch for him, or fine tune some of that. You've got a guy with a mid-90s fastball, a couple different sliders, change up. Good strikeout rate for so far. I think he's, as I'm reading his stats right now, through 35 2/3 innings this season, 2.78 ERA across 11 games, 7 of those being starts, just under 23% strikeout rate. So that's a pretty good return. I don't want to make the predictions as who's going to be what down the stretch. There's a ton of corresponding moves coming in the next 12 hours before they face off against Toronto. More than likely, I believe both these guys right now, with the way the injuries are, there's a good chance all 3 of these pitchers we got today are on the 26-man for this weekend. At least 2 of them for sure. But yeah, like that move a lot. Kolek, again, gives you somebody with a little bit of experience, year under his belt, gives the Royals options for down the road. I think one of the quotes JJ had today, and I'm going to butcher part of it, but basically said something of, we didn't want to just sell off to sell off. We wanted to get things that not only help us now, but help us this offseason and for the next couple of years. And bringing both these guys over, not only do they help you currently, because you do need pitching down the stretch this year, but two guys that you can work into the offseason and figure out where they fit. Berger, number 7 prospect for San Diego, slides in same spot for the Royals. So a top 10, basically you got a top 10 prospect for a 30-year-old catcher.
Yeah.
So like that move.
And there was the other part of it too, where I think didn't hit until I kind of read some of the comments from JJ later, and heard about Jeff Goldberg talked, or not Jeff Goldberg, Goldie talked about it on a post, but like there is a little bit of an excitement that Freddie now gets the opportunity to start somewhere. Like I'm sure that Salvi and that clubhouse as a whole didn't love seeing him go just because he has been such a big part. But then once you sit back and realize, be like, man, there's a team that's going for it this year that saw Freddie Fermin as their starting catcher and was really willing to give up this for him. Like there's part of you that, if you're Salvi, you're probably smiling a little bit, being like, attaboy Freddie. This was a guy that was never supposed to make the majors, wasn't seen, these kids from Venezuela, they get signed at 14, 15, maybe 16 years old. Freddie wasn't even brought over till he was 19 because no one saw a future with him. And he was never a prospect. And all of a sudden, by the time he's 29 years old, he's finally getting a chance. And now he's starting on a team that, I don't know where they're going to finish in the standings, but I know I don't want to see him in a playoff series. And there's going to be all Freddie with his big old smile behind the plate catching those games. So that's exciting.
Yeah, super pumped for him situationally. He's one you're going to be rooting for the rest of the season.
Right.
And certainly curious to see, how his time out there goes. Because he's going to be playing every day. He's going to be their main catcher. Let's you got anything else on that trade?
No, I mean, I could sit here and talk about Berger a little bit more just because, like, again, I really like what he could become with the Royals' track record with pitchers so far.
Under 3.5 starts the rest of the way at the major league level.
I'm gonna say over, because I think he's got that kind of stuff. Like I think even when Lorenzen comes, back, I think he's still. That's tough. I'm gonna say over, but it is a tough line. I think they want to see what they have, just because he is going to be part of the future, and if anyone is going to make some of these other starters expendable, or at least worth the trade look in the offseason, Berger pitching well in August and September would be a big reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess anything else on Kolek you want to add?
No, he's not as talented Lorenzen. Like he's a guy that I think will probably go be in AAA or be a long reliever in the back of the pen, or I'm not expecting a ton from him, but he's good depth to have. Better depth than Rich Hill and Dallas Keuchel.
For sure. Yeah, and he's a little bit different style pitcher.
Right.
There's a lot of sinkers, gets a lot of ground ball contact. So
which is good with this infield.
Yeah. With this field behind this defense that plays well for him. Both those moves immediately help your pitching needs for the rest of this season and give you some good competition going into next year. Wasn't the only pitching move though they made today. The Royals stocked up. No bullpen moves technically, but they also make a trade with the Pirates, the second trade in the last week with the Pirates, not to bring over Tommy Pham like a lot of Royals fans are hoping for, and somehow Tommy Pham is staying in Pittsburgh unless he gets DFA'd. But in Pittsburgh still. But no, they call over lefty Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter, up, I think he's 28 now.
Yeah, 28 or 29. He's a little older, but
different style lefty again. He's not one that's got crazy stuff, but he goes deep into games. He's got a good arsenal of pitches, unique delivery style. Bit on a bad Pittsburgh team that does not give much of their pitchers run support at all. Another guy that, if you're losing you're out 2 lefties right now in that rotation. So having another lefty in the rotation for the rest of the season is helpful to give you some diversity when it comes to facing other teams in some lineups there. So what do you like about Bailey Falter?
Yeah, he's not flashy, but in all of his expected stats, I mean, there's a real way for like you go and not know anything about him and look at some of the expected stuff and be pretty low on him, because I think his FIP is a whole run higher and he's not getting a lot of swing and misses and his curveball's getting hammered. But at the same time, he's kind of been like this for 2 years straight, outperforming his FIP, and like he has actual ERA, which is what we operate in, in the real world is like 3.69.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's
Sub 4 ERA.
that's a really productive pitcher that can get outs. And we've seen what Brian Sweeney can do with some of these pitchers. Maybe, Cole Reagans wasn't Cole Reagans when the Royals traded for him, and all of a sudden they made a couple switches and he was able to turn into. Now, I'm not saying this is what Bailey Falter's going to do, but tell him to stop throwing the curveball and maybe hone in on one of his other pitches, and all of a sudden you've got a guy that can be a 4 or 5 for you, or be a swing man in the pen. The Royals are a little weird on their lefties right now. Lynch is hurt, and he's not a flamethrower to begin with. Not that Falter is. Long has been really bad up until recently, and so in Zerpa, he's about the most divisive bullpen player in the pen amongst Royals fans. So, like, worst case scenario, the Royals do go on a run and Reagans comes back and Lorenzen comes back, like, I wouldn't hate throwing Bailey Falter in the pen
Sure.
for this year. And you've got him again, another guy that's adds some depth that can be in the mix for a starting rotation spot next year.
Yeah, and the other thing that if Royals fans don't know this, that's also a win in this trade is there's a lot of familiarity with Brian Sweeney. Was his
Yeah.
pitching coach with the Phillies, so there's already a relationship there. You would like to think that should also help them unlock even more the
And
fact that they can work together.
and you gave up nothing for
Yeah.
him for 3. Like, Evan Sisk is basically the reliever version of Bailey Falter. I mean, they're almost the same age, and some of you don't even know who Evan Sisk is. He's pitched a little bit this year. And then the Mole kid down in A-ball, I actually did like a little bit. He was an undrafted free agent, which, you normally don't hear about those kids a year into that, but he had 70 RBIs down for Columbia and, like, kind of was being a run producer. But at the same time, he was an undrafted rookie for a reason. Those guys don't normally, end up becoming anything. The Royals sold high on him while he was having a nice second year in the minors, and, like, we'll probably never hear about him again. So, like,
Yeah.
they gave up nothing for 3 years of control of Bailey Falter, who, again, is, he's not going to be your top end, but when you have Lugo locked up, when you have Reagans locked up, and Walker and Cameron under control, you're not looking for top end guys. You're just looking for depth, and that's what the Royals accomplished.
And you didn't really have to move any valuable prospects
No,
at all for any of those moves. You bought, I wouldn't say you bought low necessarily on these guys, but you weren't going after the guys that you were going to have to get into a bidding war against.
right.
With some of the other pitchers on the market that were being looked at. Yeah, but like all three of those moves, they give you again immediate needs down the stretch this season, but then give you a lot of competition. And I think I texted you this earlier with bringing Bailey Falter over and both Kolek and Berger, Bubic to the IL off season. You got a decent amount of lefties. You got a couple guys, prospects coming up that you want to look at. Could that give the Royals an opportunity to look at a Bubic trade in the offseason to get that outfield piece that you need? Because it wasn't the outfield piece that you really wanted wasn't going to happen at this deadline.
Right.
The asking prices were going to be way too high, and there really just wasn't that guy available. Would I have loved to get Jesus Sanchez like what the Astros did? Absolutely. But either the Royals weren't in those conversations or didn't want to give up much for him. So could that make Bubic expendable this offseason?
Yeah, it depends on his health a little bit. I think there's some concern about his injury history and is this rotator cuff going to be more? Now the Royals have come out and basically said no, it's not. They're just, it needs the rest. It's been bugging him all year, but other teams are probably asking that same question. But if all things account or if he is healthy, yeah, I think there's a very good chance that he gets moved this offseason.
And 6 weeks ago, I would hate that. Now
I'm all for it right now. Yeah.
I'm not saying left-handed all-star caliber starting pitchers grow on trees, but we've
Right.
seen this coaching staff, this pitching staff figure out ways to rapidly develop guys. And there's a couple lefties that are still out there in the wings over the next year or so that could make their way up here. And there's always going to be somebody on the open market they could go and get to.
The track record's just getting too deep at this point. Brady Singer had, one of the best years of his career last year. Lugo and Waka, Lugo's had the best years of his career here. Waka, who was thought to be on the back end, has rejuvenated.
Mhm.
Cole Reagan's a former first overall pick who couldn't get things to stick. got Cy Young votes a year ago. Michael Lorenzen's had some of the best stretches. Noah Cameron comes out of nowhere and
Out
pitches.
of nowhere.
Even Rich Hill, 45-year-old Rich Hill. I know he's not on the team anymore because you could tell he was laboring, but like you even got some decent, better than expected innings out of him. Like there's just a lot. Urseg has unlocked something. Sam Long picked this team because of the way they develop pitching. Like John Schreiber, like I could go down the list. There's just over these last 2 years, there's been a lot of examples of guys pitching some of their best baseball in their entire career. And I haven't even said Bubic yet. That I'm kind of okay at this point of trading some of the depth for bat because that's still what this team desperately needs, even with the trade deadline that was beneficial.
Yeah, because like I said, that outfield bat is not in-house.
No.
MJ Melendez, by the time most of you see this tomorrow, is probably not a Royal. He's probably one of those corresponding moves. It hasn't worked out there. Gavin Cross hasn't given you much to feel like he's major league ready anytime soon. And unless you continue to move guys who are not primary outfielders to the outfield, like a Jack Caglione, and who is hurt right now and hasn't looked great since being up here, you're going to have to make a trade for a true MLB experienced outfielder this offseason, a Jarren Duran type or whoever you want to put in there this offseason. So, yeah, it wouldn't be opposed to that. But the other move they did make today, I mean, down to the wire last second, these talks happened like an hour before the deadline went down, and supposedly it was finalized with a minute and a half to go. But they traded for a guy you've mentioned in this offseason as a target we liked. And it's funny that two of the outfielders that they did bring in over the last week are both guys you and I have talked about as guys we wanted in the offseason.
Right.
But Mike Yastrzemski, right field outfielder for the San Francisco Giants, was the final move they made, just giving up Junior Marte, their number 20 prospect, to get him. And he's probably not going to excite the fan base that much from a true number standpoint. But if you get into the analytics a little bit and dive into the strategy of how they could play guys, the combo of Grichuk and Yastrzemski now could be quite interesting. Yastrzemski, a left-handed hitter, mashes righties pretty well this year. We'll get into his splits. Grichuk, you pick up last week, hits lefties very well. You've got two guys there that give you a little bit of power pop. Grichuk a little bit more there. Neither one's probably going to play much of left field, which kind of gives you a little bit of confusion as to what they're doing because they now have three right fielders on their team whenever Jack Caglione comes back. Not saying that those other two who are professional baseball players couldn't move over to left, but they've both been primarily right field. But talking about your guy Yastrzemski, because he was one that you said looked and felt like a Royal this last offseason as a realistic trade candidate.
Yeah, because they've been wanting to add OBP, guys that walk and get on base, and that's what Yaz does. I mean, he's just a professional at bat, especially against right-handed pitching, and like he's not going to hit the ball out of the ballpark, but like he has 8 home runs this year, which if you combine Isbell, MJ, and Rave, don't reach that. They have 7 between those 3. Cags has another 4, and I'm sure I'm missing a few, but like it's not like you have a ton of home runs from your outfield. So the fact that this dude has 8 this year while playing in San Francisco, which is maybe the one park that's harder to hit homers as a lefty than Kauffman Stadium. So like I love this move. Again, I think they gave up the most for him, which was a little interesting, but at the same time, it was the 20th pitching prospect, and I like where a lot of the pitching is right now, so it felt necessary, even if
you're still trading from a position of strength in the division or within the organization.
Yeah.
So Yastrzemski's he's going to be solid. I know you kind of touched on there, but just to get into some of his splits here, 231, 330, 355 for the year with 14 doubles, 8 home runs, 28 RBIs. But he's slashing 254, 366, and 393 against righties this year. So that'll certainly play with what the Royals need because the outfield was leaving so much left to be desired.
Yeah. You've created Salvador Perez with a little more OBP and less pop with the platoon that is Yaz and Grichuk. Like Sally with this hot streak this year, his OPS is 754. Grichuk's OPS against lefties is 759. Yaz's OPS against righties is 758. So like you combine it, you have a 758 OPS guy, which is about the same as Salvador Perez into a platoon, which by far would be the best outfielder on this team. And you have to platoon him now, but you have created a big league outfielder by adding these two bats. Izzy does his thing in center, so like you're okay with him being your 9-hitter. Cax comes back and hits for a little bit of power, like you all of a sudden go from the by far worst outfield in the majors to like the 24th best
which
outfield
honestly
in the
might be all
majors.
you need.
Like, it's nothing to write home about, but it's such an improvement that I like both of these deals. I like, it's a little, I'm not a huge platoon guy, but these guys are necessary for. I want Yaza in the lineup every day against the righty. I want Grichuk every day in the lineup against the lefty. And Grichuk, I want him in the day against the righties as well at times, just because I'm not quite on the John Rave, Tolbert, MJ tour that some other people are.
Yeah. And so now, I mean, you throw Adam Frazier in there too, who could play some
Yeah.
outfield. You've got three guys who are going to give you professional at
Mhm.
bats every time out. And again, none of those three really like excite you a ton.
It
They're not the
excites me a little bit just because we have
You're
an
a baseball
outfield. we have outfielders that can produce
Yeah.
something.
They're not the big name guys
No,
you're
for
going
sure.
after, but both of those guys in the outfield, Grichuk again, he was one I thought the Royals should have signed this offseason. Grichuk even said that, hey, yeah, we talked in the offseason, and however that went down just didn't happen. So the Royals really glad to get him now. But Yastrzemski's going to be nice. I'm curious. I think they already posted he's going to wear number 5. I'm not sure, but I was curious what he would switch his number to because I'm pretty sure he was number 4 for the Giants. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that.
He can be 4 for the Royals. Or no?
I don't think they're ever going to give number 4 out ever again.
Well, they can't give 5 out.
Yeah, they can't give 5. That's what he's listed on the roster right now.
Oh, that's crazy. That's
I'll be
a
curious
number that's
to see.
actually retired. Like I
Yeah.
know Alex, he's probably gonna have a cool statue one day and we'll see what happens with the number, but I think 4 is on the table.
It would feel so wrong. I don't know. I don't know if I could give up a number 4.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what number he wears. I'm a big nerd when it comes to the numbers because I think that says a lot about you as a player.
That's crazy that he's even listed as 5 on
he's listed as 5 right now as I was pulling up the Royals roster.
That's blasphemy.
Listed as number 5.
That's insane. That like the one number you can't be. But anyway, that'll be interesting. But I am interested to see how Yaz is. I think he's gonna slot. I think that platoon is gonna slot into the 6 hole while Cags is out.
Yeah, and JJ said that they'll platoon those two a lot, but he also said both those guys are guys we want in the lineup.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll play around with it a bit. My guess is you'll see John Rave still mostly left field almost every day. Unless they feel confident Grichuk.
Well, the DH is open now.
Yeah.
Like with Freddie not here, Salvi and Vinny days, the DH days are going to be reduced more to just when Salvi isn't catching. And so I don't, that's a little scary. Can Salvi still produce with
That's what I was going to ask you next too, because we haven't seen, in his extremely limited at bats, Luke Mailey's hitting over 300, the best average on the team, 4 for 11, but Luke Mailey hasn't really been an everyday starting type of guy in I don't know if he ever has been. So he's not going to bring the same thing to the plate that Fermin was giving you. I also don't know if he's good enough in the other areas of catching to do what they were allowing where Salvi goes and plays DH or first more.
He's going to need to play twice a week just because of Salvi, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage that because Salvi is getting older and he is hitting well and you don't want him to wear down.
Yeah.
But
and it sounds like they're pretty confident. I think JJ said it last week. Somebody may have asked the question, you're carrying 3 catchers right now. That's kind of unusual.
They want to get to the deadline.
Yeah, and here's why. But he's saying that, well, Luke Mailey's a guy that we trust wholeheartedly that if Salvi had to miss time, he could go in there and split time. And it's funny that when he was asked that, it was when Salvi got hit on the arm the other night. made no comment about Freddie Fermin during that. It was all about, if Salvi had to miss a couple days or had to miss a week or two, we feel very confident Luke Maile could step in right away. And I found that to be interesting at the time, just because I'm like, well, Freddie Fermin would be your everyday catcher.
Right.
So maybe that trade was in the works for a while. But
Yeah.
if Maile's playing 2 or 3 times a week, Salvi's DHing or first base, I guess what I want to ask you is, when you look at the lineup, when Cags is healthy, when Michael Massey's healthy, which Massey
had
could be this
great
week,
goal, yeah.
could be another 2 weeks on Cags, but when those two guys are healthy, you have a decision to make. I think it's easy on the major league roster of who you move down or get rid of. Melendez is probably the first one, then possibly Tyler Tolbert, then probably John Rave. But if all these guys are healthy, who's playing where and when?
Yeah.
And what do you do with Cags? Do you bring him back up here, or do you send him back down for the rest of the year?
Let's go with how I feel the roster will look in that scenario. Like, okay, so Nick Lofton comes off.
Oh,
So
and Lofton. I forgot to mention Lofton.
so for Yaz takes Fermin's spot. So there's none of the position players currently on the roster needs to move. But if Lofton comes off the concussion list tomorrow, I haven't really heard any reports, but in the next few days, MJ's the first guy to go. So take MJ off. Then when Cags comes off, then all of a sudden you're making a decision between Rave and Tolbert. Well, with Adam Frazier as a lefty and now Yaz, I think they both can operate as the speed guy, but Tolbert's ability to play infield and outfield puts him ahead of Rave. I think we see Rave go. When NJ comes back, that gets really interesting. Like,
You mean
sorry, Massey, because it's like Tolbert is the answer, but all of a sudden now you
a
have
lot of lefties.
you have nobody. Your bench most of the days is going to be like Lofton, Maile, and then whoever's not platooning that day. You have Nick Lofton becomes your most used pinch runner, which he's not slow by any means, but he's not a stolen base like Tolbert. So like Massey kind of puts a wrinkle on how they like to construct the roster that I'm interested to see how they navigate. But aside from that, I think most days you're going to see Salvi behind the plate, Vinny at first, Indy at second, Bobby at short, Michael at third, and then this is like
This is where it gets interesting.
I think you have to play. I think you have to have the platoon of Grichuk and Yaz and left. Like I don't understand how you don't, or you make them the DH and you have Frazier in left. Like if Yaz and Grichuk are going to be the platoon, they're going to be the DH platoon. Frazier's going to be in left almost every day. Izzy's in center and Cags is in right. And then like against the lefty, maybe Lofton's in left and Frazier's on the bench or whatever. Like I don't think there's going to be a set lineup. I think you're going to see the main 5 guys or 6. I'm going to throw Izzy in there, and actually, hell,
Izzy's probably the everyday center fielder, no matter what.
Yeah, and who else can play center on this roster with the way that roster was
Tolbert and John Rave are your other. I mean, none of your other major league outfielders are playing center.
They're gonna have to make some. Like Massey might just be done. Massey might just keep on the IL forever until an injury happens because there's no room for him. Like
yeah, I mean, like right now, if you had to tomorrow, India's playing second. You know that.
Yeah.
If you had to tomorrow for the rest of the season, would you take Massey or would you take Frazier? I think that's your answer right there.
Frazier.
If you're taking Frazier, Massey's not playing in a uniform the rest of the year unless of injury.
And
like
it's just because Isbell's not like I love Izzy. Izzy's not good enough to play every day in center. I mean, 5 times a week I want him out there, but once or twice I need someone else out there. And with the way the roster is constructed with everyone's healthy, if you just take your best hitters, Tolbert and Rave are not on that roster, and now you have nobody that can play center all of a sudden. So one of them is going to have to be on the roster, preferably Tolbert, because I do trust that speed more so than anything else. I like having that. Maybe I'm just brainwashed because the Royals always have that, but like Blanco was fun last year. We all remember Dyson and Gore. Like it's just a nice bit to have that. If Tolbert needs to be on this roster, then Massey needs to be the guy that's just hurt the rest of the year.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to
DFA'd, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like,
it doesn't. Now, Mark Canha, who we haven't talked about because he's been on the injured
coming
list.
back either. I think if he comes back healthy or makes a fuss about it, I think they cut his ass. or he can just stay quiet and be, if he thinks another team will if he's healthy and he thinks another team will pick him up, he needs to be asked to release.
Yeah.
If he's fine being on the bench as the hurt veteran guy, just continue rehabbing, and whatever. We'll keep him on the IL the rest of the year. But
it's kind of funny because 2 or 3 days ago we're going, man, we need some outfield guys desperately, and we still need some outfield pop for sure. But now you have a lot of numbers
right
at the major league level that there is going to be an odd man out.
Well, and I think there's going to be an odd man out on these pitchers we all just got. I don't think all of them are going to be.
So yeah, let's flip over to that. Let me get to the active roster right now. So as things sit currently, this is as of 11 p.m. Thursday night. By the time most of you watch this, there's probably going to be a move or two already done on the transactional side. But as things sit currently, you've got Jonathan Bolin, Noah Cameron, Taylor Clark, Steven Cruz, Lucas Urseg, Carlos Estevez, Hunter Harvey, Thomas Hatch, Sam Long, Seth Lugo, Schreiber, Waka, and Zerpa. So you got 13 pitchers on the active roster.
And you have 3 coming in.
Hatch, obvious odd man out to me. He probably also gets DFA'd.
Yeah, it's interesting. They only have to DFA one person because they have 42 with the trades they made today. Because Sisk and Fermin obviously on the 40-man, and they brought in 4 guys that are on the 40-man. So they only have 2 moves to make.
Bubic was moved to the 60-day IL to clear up one spot.
Yes, Bubic was the easiest one, so now they only have 1 to make, and it becomes a
conversation. Oh, and I forgot, Joey Weimer was designated for assignment today.
I missed that. Earlier, I missed that. That's smart because he wasn't hitting in AAA. I mean, it was fun. He's had some success against lefties in the past. He's athletic.
And they also released Kevin Biggio.
Yeah, that move had been I think that was yesterday. Him being removed from the 40-man had happened a while ago, but they finally let rid of him. But okay, so we already have our answer then.
So Thomas Hatch seems obvious.
If they DFA'd Weimer, then no move needs to be made as far as DFA goes because they put
I think so.
Gone. So Hatch and Bolin go down.
But will they need to make an upcoming one after a couple other injuries? Yes, because you'll have Lorenzen
and maybe
coming back, and then Reagan's down the road.
That's it though.
Or Kyle Wright.
Or Daniel Lynch.
Yeah.
There's a lot to.
So let's just play this out. So outside of Thomas Hatch,
we apologize if keeping up.
Let's say the next likely is either Sam Long or Jonathan Bolin, or maybe Taylor Clark.
Well, here's what I'm getting at is if tomorrow I think Falter and Berger go to the major league roster and Kolek, who's already in AAA for the Padres, stays in AAA, so you just have to send Hatch and Bolin down.
Yeah,
I think it's as easy as that.
Yeah, they still have options, and that's the most.
And then
if they need a roster spot, then it's Hatch gets DFA'd.
Right, correct. Yeah. Hatches with Weimer going off today. Hatch becomes the most likely guy now to be removed from the roster. But yeah, he's getting down sent to AAA for sure, along with Bolin, who they've made take that trip so many times. And Kolek goes to Omaha, and then Berger becomes the guy that I think even if he starts a game or two once Lorenzen comes back, I don't think it matters. I think they sent him just because of his youth. And I mean, Bailey Falter would have to be really bad in 2 starts for that not to happen. So once we've actually talked through it and gone, can I go back to your answer 30 minutes ago when you asked how many starts Berger's going to make for the Royals this year? I'm going to take the under because it's just the way the numbers are kind of matching up. It's going to take a couple more injuries for that to hit the over.
Sure.
Because again, I think they like him more for next year as in depth than they.
Yeah, they'll probably want to prep him. Falter seems to be the one of those 3. I think Falter gets the most starts this season,
right? Because
Lorenzen is going to be back. Heck, I think they'd probably throw Kyle Wright out there.
I don't think Kyle Wright's part of this.
I don't think he's coming back.
I don't think we need to even talk about him. I think
if he did, I think they would want to see what they've got with him before they'd go to Berger this year. Personally,
the rotation is Lugo, Waka, Cameron, Falter, Berger, then Lorenzen comes out, then Lorenzen comes back and you remove Berger, and then Reagan's comes out and you probably remove Cameron because of the innings that he's at this point in his young career. I know it's a little crazy to say, but
because they're not going to a 6-man rotation.
If Reagan's comes back,
I guess they could because when September hits, you'll be at 28.
Cameron is no longer making starts. If the Royals fall out of it, Cameron is no longer making starts. Kolek is getting called up, and he is making those starts.
Sure.
So like Cameron's numbered regardless. I think he's got August, and I don't know how much we'll see him in September, regardless of where the Royals are.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
because of the
Unless
rookie,
Reagan's just isn't coming back,
right?
which could be. But well,
Anyway,
let's shift gears and go back to the rest of baseball for a second here. So looking at the standings, the Royals are right there in the wild card. There are 3 games back now after tonight's games, so they will start the day tomorrow against Tampa Bay. 3 games out of the final wild card spot. Cleveland, who partially sold off, you would feel like potentially slows down some, but they're still technically fighting. I think if they would have moved Stephen Kwan today, you would put them in the hard selling category. Tampa Bay's still right there. The Angels are still right there. Um, the Texas Rangers are also 5 games up because they've kind of been on a hot streak the last 2 weeks. So the Royals still have a lot of work ahead of them. But as you look around the league here, the other teams around them, the Yankees got better today. The Mariners are clearly all in. The Rangers made some minor moves just to kind of bolster some of what they need. They added, Merrill Kelly to strengthen their rotation. Just because the Royals made some moves that helped them out didn't really make the uphill climb any easier because the rest of these teams that are right there with them all got better. So as you look around the rest of the American League and at the wild card spot, which teams do you think really did the most today to push them over the top, and how do you kind of see that wild card race shaping up over the next 2 months where the Royals are just 3 games out?
That's what's crazy is like the team that improved the most out of every AL team is the Yankees, like bar none. They're the team that went out and actually made moves in the American League. Outside of the Yankees, it was a lot of National League teams making those moves. I guess the Houston Astros as well, but
Yeah, Astros got brought Carlos Correa back, got Jesus Sanchez.
yeah, and the Mariners as a thing out loud. There were some AL teams involved, but I still like what the Yankees did the most. It's interesting because the Blue Jays were so hot. They won 11 in a row and like 13 of 15 or something crazy like that. I don't know if they did enough. Like it's kind of like what the Royals did in May, a little bit, to where the Royals won 15 of 17. Everyone was like, "Oh, the Royals are going to make the playoffs," but then they've been average to below average the rest of the year. The Blue Jays, everyone's talking about it, but had the best record in baseball. It's so jumbled. I wouldn't be shocked if they fell off a little bit. I mean, you have a 35-year-old Springer who just got hit in the head. How long do you expect him to? Is he going to go all this the rest of the year? Like Kirk is hurt, their catcher.
Oh
He
my
had a
gosh, they've
concussion.
been so bad pitching with Kirk out.
They just traded Wagner, who was played third base for them. Like they didn't bring anyone in.
I think they did bring in Shane Bieber, but
Correct. But
Bieber's
he hasn't
been
made
hurt.
it. He hasn't made a major league start this year. Eric Lauer's been one of their best pitchers. I don't know how many of you even know that. Like, Chris Bassett's a nice vet. Kevin Gausman's dirty. Jose Barrios is either great or terrible. Like, I'm not a believer in the Blue Jays. I think the Yankees win the East this year,
I
and
do too.
I think even though the Yankees have played awful for about 3 weeks, I think the Blue Jays fall back. I think that the Rangers are a weird case because they're pitching so well and they have all year, and their bats are finally waking up. But like at the same time, it's one thing to talk about the Royals bats waking up. Can their pitching keep up? It's another thing to talk about like, can Patrick Corbin, who's been so bad for so long, keep it up? Can Jack Leiter, who's had hit and miss, and Kumar Rocker, who's been hit and miss, can those kind of guys keep it up? I believe in Evaldi and DeGrom, but I don't know how much I trust the rest of their starters. Merrill Kelly, who's been good this year, like he was so bad last year. Like, I don't know, man. I think the Royals have a really good opportunity to, if they go 3-3 against the Blue Jays and the Red Sox on the first 6 games of this road trip. They have a 9-game stretch against the Twins, or the skeleton of the Twins, I should say. And then they come home to play the Nationals and the White Sox. You go 7-2 on that run after going 3-3 against the Red Sox and Blue Jays. And then, oh, by the way, you have a 4-game set against the Rangers after that. Like, you could kind of make sure that September is fun
Yeah.
just by doing what you're playing 500 ball against the good teams and then doing what you're supposed to against the bad teams. Like the Twins trading everyone. I don't know if in 7 days if they're going to be over that yet, and it has me, it has me expecting at least a series win in Minnesota, if not a full-on sweep. So
Should be,
thank you,
because they're
Minnesota.
going to be playing a
They
lot of
still, they
AAA players.
still have their starting pitching. They still have Bailey Ober, they still have Joe Ryan, they still have Zebby Matthews, and some of these other guys that have been decent. But yeah, the Correa is gone. Buxton's on the IL. You get to the bullpen, there's going to be guys you've never heard of because they traded 5 bullpen guys. But yeah, so I don't know if I exactly answered your question. I have so many thoughts going through my head because so much happened in baseball today. But I think that they're in a really good opportunity. Like, yes, some of the other teams got better, but I don't know. Like the Mariners and Red Sox got better, but like those teams have such weird franchise history that I don't know how much I trust them to be a sure thing in the playoffs. And
Yeah.
the same goes for the Blue Jays, who currently I think are the 1 or 2 seed. I don't have a lot of faith in them either.
Yeah, and we talked about this pre-deadline. I think we talked about during the All-Star break that the Royals had a very interesting schedule
Yeah.
for the month of August, to where if they're competing and they have a good August, they have a lot of opportunity to make up 4, 5, 6 games right there, because they're not only facing teams ahead of them in the standings, but they also get to beat up on some bad teams if they do what they should be doing. So if they go, I don't know how many games total they have in August. Just for this, I'm going to say, let's say they go 20-10 in August and they get 10 games above 500, essentially. That's a really, really strong August to get into September, to where not only are you potentially in lock for the third wild card spot, but the AL East has to beat up each other just a little bit, or one of those teams drops out even further. And call me crazy, but the Royals are only 9 games out of the division. I don't think they're catching the Tigers. I don't think
I don't
anybody
think so.
thinks
We
that,
don't need
but
to.
hey, they go 7-2, and the Tigers go 4-5 during that stretch.
Pick up 3 games, and you got
Pick
6
up
games
3,
left.
4 games. The Tigers, they made some moves too, but
Not
they're
really,
they're a
though.
young they're a young team that could go cold for a week or two. They've had some injury concerns this year. Baez is playing out of his mind, but maybe they go through another 2-week stretch. Like they've been decent the last 2 weeks. They haven't been the best team in baseball like they were heading into the last 2 weeks. So it's doable.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about the Tigers currently, but I get what you're saying. I think they'll start to turn it about. I do feel like though that the Royals will have no one to blame but themselves if they don't get back into it. I'm not saying if they don't make the playoffs or
Sure.
not, but like by that Rangers, so that Rangers series is what? How many? So a 9-game road trip, 50. That Rangers series starts in 15 games, and by the end of it, you'll be 19 games from now. They're 1 game under 500. If they can go, there's some tough games in there, but by the end of that Rangers series, you look up and they somehow put in like 13, or 12-7, and they're 4 games over 500. Like I can't imagine there being more than a game or two out of a wild card spot unless the other team is just to get insanely hot. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're going into the last 2 weeks of August with the shot, and so like they can do that. I didn't say anything crazy. Like what 12-7 when you have the Twins, White Sox, and Nationals on your lineup, like is very doable. They just have to go out and play Royals baseball and
Yep.
keep hitting like they have been since the deadline or since the All-Star break, and they can do that. They can be 4 games over 500 in 19 games from now. That's my current goal. Now, every time I set a goal, they normally come up short by 1. Like I wanted them to win all the series out of, go 2-1 in every series, and they lost 1. And I wanted them to be 1 game over 500 by the trade deadline. And of course, they're 1 game under. Like it's just every time I have something set, they're come up a little bit short, but I think a 12-7 19 game stretch is very doable.
It's doable, and it's going to be a tight race down the stretch. You can only worry about yourself each day and take it one game at a time. But hey, if the Mariners get hot, they're only a few games out of their division, which would then put the Astros in a wild card spot. Like I said, the AL East, technically the Rays are still right in it too. So you have the entire AL East all within 10 games of each other total. If you take the Blue Jays out, the rest of them are all within 4 games of each other. So it's going to be a tight race down the stretch, but ample opportunity to take advantage of what the schedule has in front of you and show that you're serious. And if the Royals can do that, then we're going into September with possible playoff chances sky high. And we're all settled for that. But anything else we feel like we need to get off our chests today from this wild trade deadline?
I could keep going, but I'm sure not many of you made it this far anyway because I've been rambling like an idiot. But I apologize for that. But yeah, I think I'm good on the rambling. Yeah. I got enough out.
I look forward to the corresponding moves that happen and the fallout from all that for sure. And then who are the 2 guys? Maybe we'll save this for later, but the 2 guys that they would look to bring up in September to make it 28. And is there a third catcher that gets added to the 40-man? Because there's only 2. And I don't think Carter Jensen's coming up to the major league, but they could look to add him to the 40-man or somebody else. And heck, there's probably going to be other players over the next week that get DFA'd that the Royals could look at. I mentioned one of them to you already, Brian De La Cruz. I don't think there's really a position for him now, but wouldn't mind a flyer on him. But yeah, there's a lot that could still happen over the next couple of weeks, and the Royals are in a prime position to make a dent in the standing. So look forward to that. But that'll wrap it up on this edition. So yeah, thank you for any of you that have stayed with us this entire time. We'll love to see what the analytics on this say later in a couple days. But appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. Feel free to throw out any of your Royals takes at us. We would love to interact more with you guys on Royal stuff. Our Royal side of it, I think Chris and I enjoy a ton, and we're not getting enough viewership out of it. So we'd love for you guys to watch more of these.
I take some blame for that with my rambling. I apologize. It's probably hard to watch.
I'll continue to get us some rotating guests with the other podcasts on it. But we appreciate you guys checking us out as always. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Go follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at KCSA Pod, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.